right? In fact, in 2017, there was no provision for ESLA. Then we made it 2018, 2019. Then in 2020, it was zero. In fact, if you go to the 2020 budget, you can check for yourself. The bailout cost was zero. It was when we did a revised budget, that we included, ESLA. And that's one of the reasons we say, shut up, the deficit. ESLA is not covered, is it? We know the cost. Bank bailout, energy. So if it contributed to arrears in a revised budget, why blame what? COVID, right? It requires some candidness, for everything. So again, we've gone through this. We can come back. The important thing is the pipeline contract, which is a $7 billion. Interestingly, there is that compilation which went to the Auditor General, I believe was in Appendix 5 of the budget. Sorry, was in, yes, Appendix 5, a form in the budget guidelines that were issued in 2016. Interestingly, after taking it out for a long time, 2020, we have an Appendix 7. So this is what I mean by I don't have all the numbers, right? What is it that is telling us? We hear it may be as high as 25, 30 billion were disclosures made to Parliament. This is why you cannot, determine, because, the arrears provision that we have is nowhere near 10 billion or even what we know. Contractors say they are owed, we know the energy, cost, we know the, let's show the expenditure, even if we are going to show, the revenue, the extra revenue, right? So this is the extent to which I say that let's not go away with this presentation as though we are proposing every solution. There are things that, we do not know. We do not know the true state of pipeline in terms of arrears. Okay. So, again, this is a picture, that we have. You can see that after a stability from 2013, you can see the number seems to be, quite manageable all the way to 2017. Then in 2018, because the brown line is, is a bailout cost, because it comes in, then the yellow line drops. Then it comes in again, then the yellow line drops. It goes out, then it seems to be stable. Then the revised budget, because we include a very high amount of bailout costs, if you add it, then you see the blue line and the yellow line, all of them coming and becoming very wide. This is just on account of bailout. We are not talking about IMF, RCF, or anything in connection with government, COVID, right? This is bailout costs. You can check for yourself, in the budget. And then you can see, that they virtually disappear, as we go. This is the financing, right? So this financing, you would also have to make adjustments for it. Because this financing is showing the narrow, right? It's showing the narrow. So it's nowhere near, the broad, which includes the bailout costs, and some routine arrears and the rest, which are left out. But we produce it for us to see. And we make a point. You can see the light green. That you see that is the program, loans relating to COVID. We got money from IMF, we got money from World Bank, African Development Bank, development partners, we did not bring them. We got money from the Stabilization Fund, which is further down, right? And all of this covers COVID. The COVID costs are covered, apart from maybe this year's, the vaccine, and others. The 1 billion may not be enough, after the last year's, spending, right? So, but as far as the past is concerned, we borrow, to meet those covered costs, So this is just a picture of, how, the thing is the lack of consistency, not just for the current administration, but you can see even in the past, we need to bring some stability and consistency, right? You see that, we use lines deliberately sometimes to show, and even the bars, you can see that they keep going up and down. We need fiscal stability, right? And that is what the PRMA was supposed to resolve. If frequently we have bushfires, if frequently we have drought, which lowers, Bui and Akosombo, and therefore puts pressure on thermal and whatever, instead of the past where we accumulate subsidies. We should have accumulated a stabilization fund when times were good, so that when times are bad, then we fall into it, we fall on it, right? If we had to borrow during bad times, we could have been paying down our debt through the sinking fund, so that when the times are rough, then we know that our debt levels are well manageable, right? As we speak, the U.S. is proposing to raise taxes to cover COVID, right? But they are going to take it off. They have a sunset clause, just as we had a sunset clause for extra 3 to 5 years, right? So the temporary taxes. We've had temporary taxes that will fall on anytime there's crisis. It started from the Rawlings, era. We either call it national stabilization or fiscal stabilization. We've alternated between these two terms. And there are two: tax on financial and other service sectors. The tax that was put on the financial service sector is topping up the tax that was put back in 2015 when we had a crisis. It was not removed. But if you go to the Dr. Bochwe Pepra era, they took it off after they introduced it. You come to the Osafo Mafo, late Banri Edu era, they had temporary taxes when you have crisis, because an economy will always have crisis. But within 2 to 3 years, they take it off, right? The Dr. Dufo administration had it. We had it. Because of the 2015-2016 drop in crude oil prices, we are going to take it off in 2017 with Sankofa and 10. It was never taken off, and we're adding it. So how do you depend on the same thing if you make it permanent? How do you depend on it, when you have the next crisis? Because the economy will always go through crisis. I'm not being fatalistic, but that is the reality of fiscal management, right? Because it may have nothing to do with you. If demand falls in advanced countries and they stop eating chocolate or whatever, it means your cocoa prices, will go down. You have less foreign exchange, you have less budget revenues, right? Your farmers begin to. So you must build the buffers when the prices are good, right? And the U.S. learned that lesson. The U.S. is the richest economy. They learned that lesson, and they built, I believe, $3 trillion, US dollars or so, the Treasury, which was the first funds they fell on when COVID came. They learned a lesson from the global financial crisis, right? And we have it in the PRMA. Whether we're talking about, stability of the budget, which is a stabilization fund, whether we're talking about writing down debt, contingency. The first time we went into the stabilization fund, the contingency fund, which we were building, to draw from it was when the Kwame Nkrumah, not far from here, Kwame Nkrumah cycle fire, and flooding occurred in 2015. We have not put a penny again. We have not put a penny in the contingency fund since then, right? But we are going to have contingencies. We always have flooding in the north. When the water, overflows, we always know it, right? And that's the funds which, national mobilization programs should be relying on, right? It's not just for big crises, it can be for small crises, but for those villages and the rest, it is big crisis, right? So I think with the budget buffers and the rest, and this is why some of us are passionate, when it comes to the structure of the Petroleum Revenue, Management Act, let us be faithful to it. I think there's a need for us to have a debate, on the way we are using, on the 10th anniversary of exporting crude oil, on the way we are, we went through 1.5 years. I was involved, together with technical advisors like Dr. Makutufo, who led the CSO. I mean, some of you CSOs will remember the name very well, and the rest, right? He was the chief technical, I was the political, as a deputy, moved many of the, PRMA was one of the longest, took the longest time to pass as an act in Parliament because of the soul searching. We all said never again, right? So I think we should go back and have a debate. Have we been faithful? Otherwise, one day, we'll be accused like the other African countries of using our oil revenue for consumption. And when it comes to that, nobody will be praising us, right, as a nation.